But it's wonderful to see everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to get together. I know that we all find great insight and great connection as we gather here for these meetings. So look forward to our topic today. I think it's very timely for many of us and the organizations in which we serve. So again, thank you. Great to see everybody. And we'll turn it back to Laura.
Thank you, Mona. It's great to be back with our D&I forum. I will be handling some of the back-end technical pieces here today. So I am going to introduce you to Allegra Elson. She is our Director of Training and Development, and I'm certain that many of you know her and have interacted with her in her 7 months with Vibrant Pittsburgh. It feels like it's been longer in a wonderful way, in that she has folded into our work so seamlessly. But she's going to be guiding our conversation and moving the meeting forward for us today. If you have any questions, you can address them in the chat. I will be handling the chat, and I'm going to be working on putting people into breakout rooms. So if you need me, I am here, but I will be quiet for most of the meeting, which is not typical. So take it away, Allegra.
Thank you so much, Laura, and welcome everyone. It is great to see all of you and see some familiar faces and names. We have a few preliminary things to do before we get into our discussion points. Just as a reminder, the mission of the Greater Pittsburgh Diversity and Inclusion Forum is to influence organizations to prioritize diversity and inclusion as a strategic imperative by attracting, engaging, retaining, and elevating a diversity of talent who will thrive in the Pittsburgh region. The D&I Forum works to be a voice to influence positive change, share best practices, which we will do today, and be ambassadors for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. I want to take a moment to welcome some new and returning employer members, and these are the folks that have joined us since June of 2021. They are Arconic, AIRS, Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh, Catalyst Connection, Cintas, Deep Local, Greater Cleveland Partnership, Holy Family Institute, Pittsburgh Hires Veterans, Pittsburgh Metropolitan Area Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Pittsburgh Public Theater, Women's Center and Shelter, Western Pennsylvania Conservancy. Welcome aboard and welcome back. We're happy to have you as members. Excuse me. So I'm fairly certain that on everyone's mind this year has been your return to facilities plans. When, how to accomplish it, and also to do it with a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens. Depending on your business model, some of you and your colleagues may have never left the office completely, while some of us have been working from home over the last 18 months. What we'd like to do together today is, via small group discussions, we'd like to explore the different plans you have put into place and how these plans are evolving with the Delta variant. I don't think we knew that the word pivot was going to be the word of 2020 and 2021. To do this, we have asked members of the D&I Forum to serve as conversation anchors. And anchors are active participants that have been asked to further the conversation and share what their respective organizations are doing. With us today, those conversation anchors are Sharifa Anderson, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at FHL Bank in Pittsburgh, Julie Evans, Senior Consultant at Prospire, Jack Kennedy, Assistant Vice President of Benefits and Compensation at Carnegie Mellon University, Sarah Oliver Carter, Chief Diversity Officer at Duquesne Light, and Malia Taranjo, President and CEO of the Pittsburgh Symphony. So as I said, in the spirit of the D&I Forum, we will share best practices and be a voice to influence positive change and be ambassadors for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. I had also forwarded you some interesting readings with your agenda last week, also to help spark conversation. They had titles such as Return to Work Plans Evolve, Workers Are Getting Anxious, Something that I appreciate about our CEO, Sabrina, is that she has always used the phrase return to facilities and has always been clear that we are working. And I know that you and your colleagues are working too. Most workers do not expect full-time office return. And just 3% of Black professionals want to return to the office full-time post-COVID. And also how people of different abilities have worked from home for years and wondering why it took the pandemic for everyone else to start. So as you can see from this slide, we have outcomes that we hope that we will achieve today. And I hope you've had a chance to look over those as I was introducing our conversation anchors. And here's what we will do. And don't worry, you'll have these questions. We will break you up into 5 groups in 5 breakout rooms. Each room will have one of our conversation anchors that I introduced you to facilitate the discussion. Please use these questions as a guide. We will put them in the chat and they will follow in the chat to your breakout rooms. The conversation may lead in different directions, which can also be informative. And so don't feel that you must answer every single one to the letter. If your conversation goes in different direction, that's great, because we all have different plans as we return to facilities. You will be invited to join a room. You'll just need to click on that. We've allotted 30 minutes for small group discussion, and then we'll come back to the main room for a full group debrief together. You can, while you're in your room, I know that there's a button you can ask for help. If you're done early, you can return to the main room. If there's any issues, you can just return to the main room and we can put you back into your room. So just to go over the questions, did your organization move employees out of facilities? What does a return to facilities plan look like for your organization, given the Delta variant? Is your organization continuing to make accommodations for staff who need or want to work from home? Have you added any perks to get staff to come back to the office? And how do you create a sense of belonging for staff hired during the pandemic? I count myself as one of those people who was hired in the midst of the pandemic and have worked mainly from home with my colleagues. And do you have a COVID-19 vaccine requirement or mandate? How are you handling any exemptions? How are you handling this requirement? So I don't know if there are any questions before we go into the breakout room, but happy to either discuss the mechanics of the breakout room or any other questions you have before we head into the breakout rooms.
And I'm just going to jump in here and say that I will be keeping time and will be sending messages to the breakout rooms, letting you know when there are 10 minutes left for the breakout room and then 5 minutes. And everyone has been pre-assigned, it looks like, into 4 breakout rooms instead of 5. And if you do have any questions, I will be in the main room, so you can always pop back out or send me a chat.
And I will probably pop into your rooms, but I will have my video and audio off. It's not to monitor you, it's just to see if there's any questions in the moment.
Well, I'm not hearing anything, so let's get started. You will be moved into a breakout room in just a moment.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to take the opportunity to do a full group debrief. We're not going to go over every single question. I would love to hear some of the main takeaways. And also, one of the things that I heard as I went into the rooms is that it's exciting and interesting to have this diverse of a group together, because we have national, we have local, we have folks with frontline workers, with essential workers. You have, so for example, a Giant Eagle or a Duquesne Light. There are people who are always at their workplace. I heard about different ways of going hybrid and categorizing people. I also heard that Fondo is an Uber driver in Dallas. So so lots of things were shared in your rooms, and I would love to hear some main takeaways. Conversation anchors, feel free if you'd like to discuss that, or I'd also call on the entire group to talk about what were some of your main takeaways from this discussion.
Yeah, I like to, you mentioned Fonda. We had a real robust conversation, and Angela, so maybe they have some things they'd like to share.
was gonna let Fonda jump in if she wanted. She had some great passion, I felt like, that could be shared with the group, but I can go if you don't want to, Fonda. No, we were just talking around some great stuff of kind of where we are with, I thought specifically the end of our conversation was really interesting around some different points around the vaccine requirements. Fonda brought up an excellent point that because Sarah and I were kind of talking about more from the DE&I perspective of the human experience and what, everybody has different experiences with things, and that may drive their decision of whether or not they choose to get a vaccine. And especially it makes it difficult when you're in a company where you may be part of the government or something like that, where you now are being kind of more forced to do that. But Fonda brought up an excellent point around kind of the HIPAA side of things as well, of how do you even go about forcing people to provide information around those type of things. And for new hires, when you're hiring somebody, how does that then happen of, okay, can we hire this person? Are they vaccinated? How do you go about asking? Is that even something that is legal? To Fonda's point, not really. So that was kind of an interesting perspective for the last point of there's the human element of being aware of everybody's experiences and not making people feel bad for just because they've had a different experience than you, that it's important to be aware of that and not shame people when you don't even necessarily understand their perspective. But then there's also kind of that medical legality as well, where it's why, who even should be at privilege to know about these type of things, and who should be, is it okay to even ask those type of things, which to Fonda's point, not really. So that was definitely an interesting perspective I had never thought about when it came to the vaccination part of things, is where does that even fall from like kind of a personal medical legality standpoint?
I would say that we have spent double our fees for our labor and employment attorney than we have typically spent in a year, because there are so many unknowns around COVID in general that we literally just are going to them and saying, what can we do? What can't we do? And they're like, a lot of this is unknown. A lot of this will be determined as this rolls out. There's a lot of litigation that's being filed, and a lot of them are just saying, look, at this point, you can do X, Y, and Z. I wouldn't do A, B, and C. And so everyone's dipping their toe into this as fairly and tenderly as they can with their employees, because no one knows really how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, thank you for this. This was actually something that came up in conversation with Michelle Piketowski from CMU, in terms of having employees be in compliance with a vaccine mandate, and what was then the next step going to be. And Jack, I don't know if you're part of that conversation at CMU or not, if you can speak to that at all.
Oh, yes, we are very, very careful. So when we look at the compliance aspect of it, it's not whether or not you're vaccinated, it's whether or not you're compliant with the program. And the people who have access to that information are very limited. So we have a university health services who are able to actually gather that information. They're healthcare providers, so they're subject to HIPAA and the rules that go along with that, and their systems are. But as far as sharing any information, as far as it's really only whether or not you're compliant. So if somebody is compliant, it doesn't necessarily mean they're vaccinated. They may have been approved for an exemption for one reason or the other. So the only thing that like with our new hires is whether or not they're compliant. It's not vaccinated or not vaccinated. And it has been a very thoughtful discussion. I mean, with us, I mentioned it in our meeting, students have been required to be vaccinated, forever, as long as I can. I remember going to school years and years ago and having to provide the vaccinations. So, we have 15,000 students who are subject to vaccination requirements. It lends itself at that point to say, well, shouldn't the faculty and staff also be subject to that? And that was, I can tell you, that was a summer-long discussion. It went back and forth. we did surveys, voluntarily asked people to just provide their vaccination status, to get a feel for what percentage of the university was vaccinated, so that it informed our decision. And it was, I was surprised, but not completely surprised. And I think some of the proclamations that came out of the government, as we move forward with the requirements that were issued, I think that also kind of informed some of our decisions. We do a lot of work for the federal government, a lot of security kind of, our departments. And so there is people who are going to be subject to the rules anyway, so a lot of those different areas informed our overall decision. And as we looked around at all our peers institutions across the United States, that percentage of institutions who were requiring vaccination was also rising pretty dramatically. The Chronicle of Higher Education actually published a website listing everyone, so it was a difficult decision, but I think we put a lot of time and effort into how are we going to do it, and we're still working through it. To be honest, we're at the point now where we're moving into the stretch of is everybody compliant? What are we doing if you're not? Or are we helping people who aren't? So, all right, to meet the requirements to do what they need to do.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I know that we also have educational institutions on the call too, so it's interesting to have this variety here. I also want to amend my comment about Fonda. She was in law school while she was driving for Uber in Dallas, so that also probably, which is why this came up. So, so I would love to hear from others around accommodations for staff, or any perks, or how are you balancing the folks who can and are able to work from home and the folks who just can't? Their job takes them on to the front line. So I'd love to hear some of those also.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone from breakout room 3, I believe we were, would want to speak up, but we did have an interesting diverse group where, my organization, we are really in a hybrid model. We work for our clients. So we really do make accommodations through our company to, if a client would like to see us on site, we make those arrangements as long as folks are comfortable. But we also had 2 organizations on our breakout room who had essential workers, and where there were opportunities for work from home for some corporate teams, that was again flexible, and continuing to explore when that can remain flexible, and is that a long-term goal, or is it something that's just until things change course. And then we had Malia, who's with the symphony, and so that's, or orchestra, I'm sorry. And it's very different because you actually play an instrument while you're at work. And what does that mean for, the safety of those who are performing as well as the attendees? And so we had a really interesting conversation, just all coming from very different organizations and structures. Something, again, from the DEI perspective, you only always think in your own little bubble of what does your organization need to do, but thinking on a larger scale, there's no right answer. There's not a one size fits all solution.
Yeah. And I heard an interesting comment from Sarah about from an equity perspective, that people feel like things are more equitable on Zoom because there is not somebody at the head of the table running things. There's not this physical presence, so that there is also some feeling of equity in this atmosphere. But again, it's a balance for folks that must be at work, that are frontline workers.
So our group and others, I think we were group 1, so feel free to jump in here. One of the things that was raised was transportation subsidy, so parking reimbursement, not wanting folks to be exposed on public transportation, so covering things like parking and Uber rides. But other kinds of accommodations, what we talked about was, for those who, and we had a mixed group with some who had essential workers and so on. But how did they address the equipment needs needs of their employees when they move to this remote environment, to the extent that, you know, employees were able to do so. And so I think in many cases, what I heard was, if it wasn't a broad scale policy, a real desire and attempt to give people what they needed. So folks had a forum if they didn't have equipment to make requests and get the things they needed. And that was certainly the case at the bank, whether folks borrowed equipment or, you know, got a stipend or, you know, a Chromebook, et cetera. One thing on the Zoom front that as we transitioned to the virtual environment that we had a lot of conversation around was giving people the space to go camera off or audio off when they needed to. And so in some ways, that was, you know, I would say that our culture is still a cameras on culture in our small group. That I think that might be the case for others as well. But there, you know, there were some significant concerns and discussion around that. And I think we're still evolving in our thinking about what it means to be on Zoom and to consider what else is going on in individuals' households, and you know, whether or not folks feel really comfortable still a year and a half into this, you know, being having meetings from their homes.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. When I was working in adult education, working with adult students, I realized that when I was teaching them, I was in their home and they were in my home. And sometimes my students did not want to appear on camera for, you know, the exact reasons that you brought up, Sharifa. What's going on in the background? What does it look like? How small is it? Who's around? And that also brings up issues of equity. But I didn't. It took me a minute to realize that we were sort of in each other's homes, which is not a normal situation. So I would like, with a little bit of time that we have, if we could get a bit to the creating a sense of belonging for staff hired during the pandemic. As I mentioned, I was one of those people hired. I was hired in March. I started on March 1st, 2021 with Vibrant Pittsburgh. And I know that, you know, we're a very small group, which was very helpful. And we have a lot of smaller meetings and team meetings. And I was brought into the fold fairly easily, because I think also because of our size too. But I did hear some discussion around what helped to create a sense of belonging, particularly if you're working in a bigger institution. If you were hired during the pandemic, or if you hired staff during the pandemic, were there things that you did for those staff?
I'm just going to jump in here and say that we also hired Gina Winstead, also on this call during the pandemic, and she's actually rounded out a full year working virtually with Vibrant Pittsburgh. So there are individuals that have been on the payroll for a whole year. And Gina, I'd love to know, like, your thoughts on that too. Like, what has that experience been like?
Yeah, I'll come off mute for a moment. So I was 100% a virtual employee, came in July 2020, and here we are, September 2021. I thought that I would at least be able to enjoy some time with my new coworkers. And it has been a bit of a challenge, but I think for us, there's been a few initiatives and practices in place to really make sure that we're connecting and bonding, whether it's having an occasional lunch or an outing where everybody's coming together, or having our weekly Friday check-ins and having a face-to-face, so that I can at least get to know people's personalities, what they're doing in their free time, what they have planned for the weekend, because a lot of that is lost. A lot of that community bonding that you would get one-on-one kind of still makes you feel like you're on the outside, but it takes a lot of intentional effort to make sure that especially underrepresented employees are feeling like they have an opportunity to get to know you and to get to know people. And I think it's a bit of a silver lining too, because there's more accessibility to different people on your staff by being virtual and in different offices. So I know some of our member companies that are here today are national, and they have offices across the United States or across the East Coast, and being able to get to know more people from maybe it's a specific affiliation group, a specific background that you wouldn't have met otherwise because you're solely in Pittsburgh, has been, I think, a great thing for some of our companies. So for me, it wasn't too bad, but I just think that it takes a lot of intentionality to make sure that new employees who have not been able to shake hands with per se, their leaders need to have special attention paid to them, and need some additional one-on-ones, I think, with your boss and your leader to make sure you feel supported and sponsored to succeed in your role.
Thanks.
Thank you, Gina.
Thanks. Well, should we take any last comments or ideas, and then we can move on with the rest of our agenda today?
I would just like to say that we had Dr. Paul in our group. One of the things that he brought up that I thought was interesting, he said, because of the way, the potential back to work would look, that there were some people who didn't necessarily agree with that and may have other kinds of concerns. And he wanted to make sure that they had a voice so that his team and HR serve as the voice, and they take those concerns and comments and they push them up the ladder to some of the leaders in the organization, so they can be sensitive to and empathize with, employees in different situations. So I thought that was an interesting way to create a level of belonging, because we know to create belonging, you need to feel valued and heard. So I think with his model that he talked about, I don't know if he's on, but I thought that was an interesting approach.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Any other models or interesting approaches that you heard in your groups? Okay, well, I want to thank you, all of you, so much for this very robust conversation, for being willing to talk about all sorts of things. And I did, hear some personal stories too. So thank you for that. I think it was a great, I hope it was a great way to share some of these things that we're all grappling with. So thank you very much for your very active participation. So with the time that we have left, I do want to talk to you about an initiative that I am rolling out in my role as the Director of Training and Development. And I think, all of you know that including diversity, equity, and inclusion topics in an organization's professional development program on a regular and ongoing basis really helps keep your employees up to date on what they need to, on terms, on practices, on opportunities, on challenges. And I think that we have really gotten away from the one and done training or the check the box types of training. So as part of my role, I want to be able to provide what I'm calling layers of learning for you and for all of your colleagues and for employees at your organizations. So every other month, we have our Resilience Through Equity series, and that is a live webinar with a presenter or presenters, and those address specific topics from the 10 Vibrant Index criteria areas. So I'm very intentional about choosing speakers and topics that really hit on those 10 Vibrant Index criteria areas. I've also started, and I know that some of you have attended our monthly Lunch and Learns, and those are for all employer members, and they're for all of the employees for organizations that are members in Vibrant Pittsburgh. It brings together employees from across sectors and industries in a very informal and interactive atmosphere to deepen knowledge about diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. And this month, I'm really happy to say that we had an amazing turnout for the ABCs of Belonging. Over 60 people attended. We had 15 breakout rooms, and we had also very, very deep discussions around belonging. So the next thing that I will be rolling out in terms of training is an on-demand virtual learning opportunity, and we will be using the learning management system called Teachable. It is an online course platform or learning management system. And within Teachable, we will have some of the trainings that we have done that Laura McKnight has developed over the last year and a half, and also some new ones that I'm developing, so such as the power of empathy, inclusive workplaces, mitigating unconscious bias. And it will be a course that you can follow through. Usually they take about an hour or so. And After that, after employees have done the Teachable course, then I would come in and do another training session, but more of a training session that would be a discussion of the points of the of what are in the particular learning system. So, for example, if you were to call me and say, we want to get a Teachable session on the books, we would have a pre-training consultation to assess needs. That's about an hour, and we'd also do a pre-session survey and have results for you. There would be some pre-work, so either readings or videos to review right before the session, and then would have employees go on to the 1 hour pre-recorded learning session, which would be on Teachable. It's on demand, it's virtual, it can be accessed 24/7, so at people's convenience. It can be done on a laptop, it can be done on a phone. And there are also moderated discussion boards, which will be there. So we'll have some discussion between the people using the system. And then after that, have a 1 hour either virtual conversation with activities, have participants, have breakout rooms, have much more deeper discussion. And then afterwards have a post-session, a debrief for about 30-45 minutes, and also have a post-session survey with results. So what my hope is, and that part of my job is really to really deepen and add rigor to the trainings that we have and add more trainings. So you're going to be seeing this rolling out over, through the end of this year and into next year. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have about some of the things that I'm doing on the training and development side.
So Allegra, any of our employees are able to take advantage of these classes?
Yes, yeah, we would have to, yes. So all of your employees can do the Resilience Through Equity series, which happens every other month. Monthly lunch and learns, that's for all employees. And then depending on your membership level and what your needs are, we would have a conversation, but yes, all of your employees could use this. And another aspect of this is you could use it for onboarding too. So it can be, we can have a conversation about it and see how it really fits for your organization.
That's great. I had no idea that this was available.
I've been doing a lot these last 7 months. I've been busy. So happy to talk to all of you. I know that we'll be throwing some things in the chat, and I'll make sure that I throw in my email. If you don't have it, feel free to reach out to me about this.
And I also want to add that previous Lunch and Learns and previous Resilience Through Equity webinars are all in our member resources, and any of your staff and employees can get into that member resources area and can go back and watch any of those pre-recorded sessions.
Yeah, and yeah, and you have a login. If you don't have your login, if you can't find it, let us know. We'll get you in there. Right, I think I am going to turn it back over to Laura to talk about some updates.
Yes, so just to finish us out today, again, thank you for such a fabulous conversation and for getting to know each other. I had really hoped that we were going to be able to meet in person at our new office space at the Americas Club downtown. However, it just seemed safer, given the Delta variant, to make the decision not to do that this time. So we're hoping, we have fingers crossed, perhaps maybe we'll be able to do our holiday party in person, and in doing that, be able to have opportunity to see you all face to face. So we'll see if that happens. Things that have happened recently: our Vibrant Index Summary Report was released on August 11th. I am going to drop links in the chat to both the report and to the webinar that we recorded on August 11th, if you're interested in seeing either of those. A plug for the Vibrant Index: if you are an organization in our region, you don't have to be a Vibrant Pittsburgh member, you are invited to participate in the Vibrant Index process annually. We are always taking names and information of organizations that are interested in participating. We would love to have every organization in the region participating in our index so that we can get the best information out to the region about what organizations are doing in terms of DE&I best practices. So if you have any questions about the Vibrant Index process or want more information or would like to see a sample of the questions, please reach out to me. I am always available to you to get you more information about this. And coming up on October 13th, we are having our annual Regional Economic Inclusion Summit. This year, it will be fully virtual. So you can attend any portion of the event that you're interested in seeing. It's going to be taking place between approximately 9 and 4 p.m. on October 13th. Tickets are available. I will drop a link in our chat. If you have any questions about the summit, please let us know. The agenda is, and I'm going to drop another link here that has more information about our agenda, the speakers, our theme this year, which is more than a moment. We're really looking at how we can extend this greater interest in bringing diversity, equity, and inclusion into organizations from just something that that happened in response to tragedies in our nation to something that actually continues on and continues on in a robust way that makes significant change for our region. So we'd love to see you there at the REI Summit. Check the chat for information about registering and for information about our speakers. Some of our speakers are actually in this session right now as we speak. And we have links up for our Lunch and Learn that is coming up on October 27th. As Allegra stated, this is an opportunity for any of your organization employees to participate and get diversity, equity, and inclusion conversation and training. Our Lunch and Learns are opportunities to have a, I wouldn't say a more casual conversation, but to have a less guarded conversation about topics and to learn with others that are interested in having a lunchtime discussion of some of the basics around diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are great opportunities for your new organization members to jump into DEI and to get an experience with Vibrant Pittsburgh and to know about your investment with Vibrant Pittsburgh. And then we have the Resilience Through Equity series. Again, this is a webinar series that tackles the topics that we are looking at in the Vibrant Index. We don't want to just put out our diagnostic every year and say, we hope you do well. We want to give you the information that can help you to do better. So our next Resilience Through Equity series event is on November 10th, and we will be discussing supplier diversity. So if you have any questions about either of those opportunities, or if you just want more information about Lunch and Learns or the Resilience Through Equity series, please reach out to Allegra. Allegra, if you could drop your email into the chat, that would be great. And if you have any questions about our summit or about the Vibrant Index process, if you would like to have me come virtually to have a conversation with your leadership about the Vibrant Index, you can definitely reach out to me directly. I'm going to drop my information into the chat. But always know that we have opportunities to increase your learning and to increase your employees' ability and bandwidth around DE&I. And even if there's something that you've been thinking about and you're interested in a training, but you're not certain that we have created it yet, please reach out to us. We are working on a variety of new trainings right now. And we would love to know if you're interested in Teachable, because we're rolling that out, as Allegra said. Any questions? Well, with our last few minutes, we would like to just leave some space for any member updates, anything that you'd like to share with the group, any opportunities for connection or networking, or events that you would like to highlight here at the end of our meeting.
Well, I'll throw it out there. We've got our POPs series starting this weekend with our new principal POPs conductor, Byron Stripling, he's the first Black POPs conductor or titled POPs conductor in the country. and he's an amazing jazz musician. And then also next Tuesday, the symphony we're unveiling a piece of public art that will be on the back of Heinz Hall facing the Benedum Center. And we're doing a press announcement unveiling the piece and the artist. And it's an artist of color, and we're super excited about the collaboration. So hope people can make it.
That's wonderful, Amelia. Would you send some information to me or to Allegra via email so we can push it out to the rest of the forum?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, it seems like we are quiet and it's almost 5 o'clock. So let's let you go. Thank you so much for being so, I hate to say it, so vibrant in your conversation today, and for really just connecting and making sure that we're sharing the best ideas that this region has to offer around DE&I, and doing exactly what this forum was created to do, which is to make sure that we aren't keeping our best ideas in silos. We want to make sure that we're pushing these ideas out. So hopefully you gained some perspectives from other industries and sectors today. Hopefully there are some interesting ideas floating around in your mind. And again, please, if you're interested in connecting with each other, let us know. If you're thinking, I really wish I could have a further conversation with so-and-so, let us know so that we can further that and we can get connection information out to you. We want to make sure that this is a forum that is not just meeting once a quarter, but that you do support each other outside of this forum, and that we have a great network of DE&I experts and practitioners here in the region.
And I want to say thank you again to our conversation anchors who helped out today and ran the rooms and had the conversation. So that was Julie, Sharifa, Sarah, Jack, and Amelia. I know you, Amelia. I know that you were a little late, but we're happy to have you with us too. So I hope I got everybody, I think. But thank you so much for volunteering to do that with us.
And if you're interested in being a conversation anchor in the future, it is a pretty low lift. We ask you to be engaging and charismatic, which you already are, and to participate with us in creating questions and anchoring a breakout session. So if that's something you might want to do, please let us know. We would love to talk with you. Well, thank you, everyone. We sincerely appreciate your time and your effort and your ideas and insights. Keep doing the work in this region. We appreciate it. We appreciate your partnership. Thank you again, and have a wonderful Thursday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yeah, see you all later.
Thank you.